Well, I'd like to ask Dr. Mills these two questions. One, how does the breast milk of humans compare to that of animals that eat other animals versus animals that eat plants? And what does this say about the type of food humans were designed to eat? And the second question is, how does the bite force, teeth, and saliva differ in species that eat other animals versus those that eat plants? And then for Brenda, I'd like to ask you about three things. How do we, one, lose weight? How do we, two, avoid migraine headaches? And three, how do we avoid chronic kidney disease and other kidney issues?
I can answer the migraine headaches. Don't watch Fox News. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that. Okay. All right, Steve, I'm sorry. Human breast milk. Human breast milk has the lowest protein content of any milk of any mammalian species on the planet. And the reason is that proteins are building blocks. Proteins are meant to build our body's tissues, enzymes. They build structures in the body. They aren't used for energy. They aren't stored as protein. They are merely used to build tissue in one form or another. So it's like building a house. If you wanted to build a house and you plan to build that house by yourself, you would not need a semi full of building materials pulling up to your lot every other day or once a week, because you could not utilize all those building materials. On the other hand, if you had a whole building crew, then you would need that much building materials to keep up with the rate at which you're putting your house up. And because human beings are so slow growing, we don't need a lot of protein. Human beings are the slowest growing animal on the planet. No other terrestrial mammal, certainly, takes 20 years to reach maturity. And because we're so slow growing, we don't need a lot of protein. And that also translates, as we move through the rest of our lives, that we do not need a ton of protein unless you've been injured and received a crush injury in a car accident, or you're trying to build yourself up for some Olympic weightlifting competition. But even then, the fact is the amount of protein you'll be able to utilize on a daily basis is going to be relatively fixed. So in general, human beings have very low protein needs, and that translates into what we should be eating. What we should be eating really is we need to supply our brains. When you look at human breast milk relative to the milks of other animals, the remarkable thing is that even for very large animals, we have much more sugar, I should say human women, have much more sugar in their breast milk than you find in other species. Why is that? It's because humans have huge brains, and even a human baby, as small as it is relative to the infants of other species, has a huge brain. I mentioned before that every day, 25% of the calories that you burn in a given 24-hour period are utilized by your brain alone. Your brain accounts for only 3% of your body weight, but it uses 25% of the energy you burn and 20% of the oxygen you utilize on a daily basis. That's how metabolically active it is. That's why what we need are the complex and whole carbohydrates that Brenda was talking about earlier. We don't need a ton of protein. We need fuel for this massive computer that we carry around on the top of our necks that utilizes only sugar. And that's what we should be taking in primarily, is carbohydrate with a little bit of protein and a modest amount of fat.
What was that? I'll take one.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the first I'll do is weight loss. It's really simple. When we consume too many calories and move too little, it's that equation of overconsumption and under activity. We're storing. See, when we have excess weight on us, we're actually just storing the excess, right? And so we have to figure out, how do we get rid of the excess we've stored? And that means taking in fewer calories than we need, or burning more, burning more energy. And but that seems simple on paper, but it's not that simple for a lot of people, because we all have different metabolisms. And I can tell you that some people are created to be very metabolically efficient. They don't need a lot. They're really the folks that would survive famine, if we had a famine. And they tend to need few calories, and their ancestors may have been the folks that were in a canoe for 3 days trying to find a little bit of food, and they didn't have a lot of access to food, so they needed to be able to hang on to their calories really well to be able to survive. And for those kind of people living in an environment of abundance or overabundance, they get fat more quickly than other people. They pack on pounds easily. Other people that are just sort of that long, lanky, hollow-legged kind of people can eat a lot. And I know for myself, I'm sort of somewhere in between, but I have a friend who's about 103 pounds if she's soaking wet. And she's just a little bit shorter than me, but she can eat almost twice what I eat. And that isn't fair, but it's not, because we all love to eat. We want to be able to eat a lot, but the reality is that some people just can't eat as much as others without gaining weight. And so how do we manage to reduce our calories without reducing the volume of food we're eating, so that we can still enjoy a wonderful meal? And the way that I do it, especially when she's at my house, is I have really big portions of non-starchy vegetables. So I have a lot of salad. I have a lot of Brussels sprouts, and I fill my plate with non-starchy vegetables. And then I have a more moderate serving of the starchy vegetables, the grains, the beans. The beans I tend to be more liberal with because of the amount of fiber, and I don't think they're a problem. But the more concentrated calorie sources, like the really starchy foods and the very high-fat foods, I'm more moderate with in my intake. So I'll put a smaller portion of walnuts in my breakfast bowl than, say, my husband would, who's 6'3" and 170 pounds. So he can just have a little bit more of those things. And so that you need to really figure out how to be able to eat a lot without taking in so many calories. That's helpful. The other thing is, do not drink your calories if you're one of those people that can't get rid of weight, because your appetite control center does not register liquid calories the way it does solid calories. So drink water. And then the other thing I would say is, and this goes completely against what I learned going through, a nutrition program at school. We were taught, don't weigh yourself every day. Scales are for fish. You shouldn't be doing that. It'll just discourage you, all of that. And in fact, in the last 10 years, the studies have been really clear. People who weigh themselves every day maintain their weight over their lives to a much narrower range than people who are not doing that. And why? It's very simple again. If I step on the scale in the morning and my weight is up 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds, I'm not going to feel so good about having that extra serving of dessert that day. It just it causes you to rein in a little bit in what you're doing. And so daily weighing, I think, is a really good idea for most people.
Steve, what was my second question? The second question.
Okay, the bite force.
Yes. And so then my second question was about bite forces and saliva and whether or not various animals had enzymes in their saliva. So the fundamental thing to understand is that carnivores do not chew their food. And if you've ever fed a dog meat, you've noticed this. They'll just get a hunk and they swallow it. When I used to eat meat as a kid, my mom would give me scraps of chicken to go feed our dog. I was so afraid he was going to choke to death because I'd throw something out and he just and but that's the way they eat, because meat is actually broken down very quickly, very easily by enzymes and acid, and you don't need to chew it. Plant food, on the other hand, is full of fiber, which we don't have enzymes that digest, so we've got to rip those plant cells apart so that our digestive enzymes can get at the nutrients inside, and that's what chewing is for. Chewing is to break up the plant material and expose it to digestive enzymes, and as a result, a lot of herbivores have enzymes in their saliva that begin breaking down carbohydrate as we're chewing. And there's a large salivary gland right in front of our ear called the parotid salivary gland that makes an enzyme called salivary amylase. And that enzyme starts breaking down carbohydrate as you're chewing your food. And in terms of bite forces, if you've got to break bones and slice through tough hides, you need to develop tremendous bite forces. And as a result, all carnivores have bite forces somewhere between 400 to over 1,000 pounds per square inch. They could literally bite through your arm. The best we can do as humans is about 150 pounds per square inch, which, again, as you probably know, will let you crack open a walnut, but not a Brazil nut. and that's just it. We don't have, not only don't we have the bite force, we also don't have the jaw mechanics. And again, for those of you who've not seen the lecture, Are Humans Designed to Eat Meat? It'll be available from this lecture, but it's also on YouTube. And what it points out is that carnivores' jaws close in a vertical fashion. The teeth slide past each other vertically, but what that means is that they can come down on a bone and exert tremendous force to crack that bone apart so that they can swallow half a leg and not have a problem. And parenthetically, that's where adult carnivores get their calcium, from dissolved bones from the animals they eat.